Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The morning sunlight streamed through the Quartermain estate windows as Willow stood before the mirror, smoothing the simple white satin of her wedding dress. She looked serene on the outside, but a flutter of nerves churned beneath the calm exterior. All she could think about was how far she had come. From loss, illness, heartbreak, and fear all the way to this moment, a second chance at happiness. She whispered to herself that today was supposed to be perfect, that nothing could shake her. But even as she spoke the words, Willow felt a strange heaviness creeping in, as if something unseen waited just outside the door. A soft knock followed and she turned, expecting to find Michael or maybe Carly. But instead, Nina stepped inside, her expression troubled, her posture tense, her hands twisting in front of her as though she was holding on to something she didn't want to release. Willow blinked at her. "Nina? Is everything okay?" She didn't expect warmth today, only civility. She had made peace with Nina's presence, had allowed her back into her life in cautious steps. But there was something different in Nina's face. A grief, a desperation, maybe even fear. Nina closed the door slowly, her breath catching, and Willow's stomach tightened at the sight. Nina's voice came out barely above a whisper as she said, "We need to talk." Willow frowned, glancing at her dress. "Now? Nina, the ceremony is in what? Less than 2 hours. Whatever this is, can't it wait?" Nina shook her head sharply, almost trembling. "No. Willow, please. You need to hear this before you walk down that aisle." Willow's heartbeat picked up, a steady thud against her ribs, because this wasn't the tone of a woman bringing good wishes. This was a warning. Or worse. Willow crossed her arms carefully so she wouldn't wrinkle the dress. "All right," she said quietly. "What's going on?" Nina took a few steps closer, then stopped, as if she wasn't sure she had the right to approach her daughter more than that. Willow waited, the silence prickling. Nina opened her mouth once, twice, the words refusing to come. Finally, she swallowed and forced herself to speak. "Willow," she said, her voice shaking, "I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean to find out this way. I don't want to ruin your day." Willow's frustration flickered. "Then don't. Whatever this is, if it's about Michael, we can talk after." Nina took a breath and spoke the 6 words that froze the air in the room. "Michael doesn't love you anymore." Everything in Willow's world stopped. The clock ticking on the wall. The rustle of her gown. The movement of her breath. She stared at Nina, disbelief washing through her like ice water. Willow's voice cracked when she managed to say, "What did you just say?" Nina's eyes filled with tears. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry, but it's the truth. Michael doesn't love you anymore." Willow felt like the floor was tilting, the walls closing in. "Stop," she whispered. "You don't get to come in here and say something like that. Not today." But Nina held up a trembling hand. "I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. I overheard him last night, at the gatehouse with someone else. He said he didn't know how to tell you. He said he didn't want to hurt you before the wedding." Willow felt her throat closing. "With someone else? Who?" Nina hesitated, and Willow swore her heart literally paused. "I didn't see who he was talking to," Nina admitted. "I only heard the words. But he said he doesn't know how to keep pretending." Willow shook her head violently. No, Michael wouldn't. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't talk about our marriage like it's some lie. He wouldn't betray me like that. You must have misunderstood." Nina looked devastated but firm. "I wish I misunderstood. But I know what I heard." Willow turned away from her, gripping the edge of the vanity as her vision swam. Michael had been distant the past few weeks, distracted during conversations, disappearing for long periods with vague explanations. She chalked it up to stress, to wedding preparations, to work. Never, not once, had she considered the possibility that he was drifting emotionally. Why didn't he say anything? Willow whispered to herself. Nina stepped forward slowly. "Because he still cares about you. He doesn't want to break your heart." "But Willow, you deserve the truth before you make vows that he isn't willing to keep." Willow heard the gentleness in Nina's voice, the empathy. But part of her still recoiled. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked sharply. "Why today? Why like this?" Nina's eyes hardened. Because you're my daughter. And I refuse to watch you tie your life to someone who isn't honest with you. Willow felt an internal battle raging, her loyalty to Michael clashing with the raw, gut-wrenching insecurity now clawing at her. She closed her eyes. I need to talk to him, she said, breathless. I need to hear this from him. Nina nodded. I think you should. Willow stormed past her, her gown swishing as she moved down the hallway. She didn't care about the dress, the ceremony, the flowers already arranged on the lawn. She cared about the truth. She found Michael in the living room, helping Danny adjust his tie. When he saw her, his face lit up too brightly. Too practiced. Willow stood rigid and Michael felt the shift instantly. Danny excused himself nervously, and then it was just the two of them. Michael approached, but Willow raised her hand. Don't, she said sharply. Just tell me the truth. Michael blinked. Willow, what's wrong? She swallowed hard. Do you love me? Michael looked stunned. Of course I do. She stepped closer. Then you won't mind telling me why you said last night that you don't. Michael's jaw dropped. What? Willow, I never said that. Who told you this? Willow's eyes glistened. Nina heard you. She said you told someone that you didn't know how to keep pretending. Michael's face tightened. Willow, she's lying. Willow felt another crack in her heart. Are you sure? Because you have been distant. You've been hiding things. You've been pulling away from me. Michael exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I've been stressed. With the LQ. With the SEC fallout. With everything. But I haven't stopped loving you. Not for a second. Willow studied him, searching for something she could hold on to. Then what did Nina hear? Michael cursed under his breath. I was talking to Brooklyn. I told her I didn't know how to pretend like everything was normal between me and Sonny. I said I didn't want to dump all of that stress on you before the wedding. That's it. Willow felt her knees weaken. So, you were talking about Sonny? Not us. Michael nodded fiercely. Yes. Willow, I would never tell someone I don't love you. Because I do. More than anything. Willow let out a shaky breath and backed away, her emotions spiraling. But Nina, Michael's expression hardened. She twisted it, Willow. She always twists things. Willow folded her arms tightly. I don't know what to believe. Not right now. But I know one thing. If we're having these kinds of doubts, this wedding isn't happening today. Michael froze. Willow, what? No. You can't cancel. I can, she said softly. And I am. I need time to think. I need space. I can't walk down the aisle feeling confused. Michael reached for her hand, but Willow withdrew. Please don't make this harder. Michael's voice cracked. Willow, I love you. Don't let Nina do this to us. Willow shook her head. This isn't about Nina. This is about me. And how I feel. If everything were solid between us, her words wouldn't have shaken me. But they did. And that means something is broken. Michael's shoulders slumped in defeat. When Willow turned to leave, she found Nina standing in the doorway, a look of satisfaction flickering behind her guilt. Willow inhaled sharply. You got what you wanted, Willow said coldly. Nina looked horrified. No. Willow, that's not what Willow shook her head. I'm canceling the wedding. And I need you to leave. Both of you. I need to be alone. Nina's face fell. Michael looked like he'd been punched. But Willow stood firm, her spine straight, her gaze steady. For the first time all morning, she felt a strange clarity, painful but undeniable. She didn't know what her future held. She didn't know what Michael's truth actually was. And she didn't know if she could forgive Nina. But she did know one thing. She couldn't make vows today with doubt weighing more heavily than love. Willow walked back to her room alone, the silence of the mansion echoing her shattered hopes. She closed the door behind her, the sound final enough to make her flinch. She stepped out of her gown, folded it gently, and set it on the chair. Her hands shook as she removed her earrings and placed them beside the mirror. The day that was supposed to symbolize new beginnings now felt like an unraveling. She moved to the window and watched as guests began arriving below, blissfully unaware that the wedding was no longer happening. She wondered how she would face them, how she would explain. But that was a problem for later. Right now she just needed to breathe. A single tear slipped down her cheek, followed by another. She sank onto the edge of the bed, her heart aching with betrayal, from Nina for saying the words, from herself for believing them, and from the fear that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't wrong to be shaken. She whispered into the quiet room, "What if I made a mistake?" But no answer came. Only the soft hum of the house, heavy with the weight of the fallout Nina's 6 words had detonated. Willow wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the lonely stillness settle in. It would be a long time before she knew the truth, before she knew who to trust. But she knew this. Nothing about today would ever be forgotten. The opulent ballroom of the Metro Court Hotel glittered with 1,000 points of light, each crystal of the chandeliers reflecting the meticulously arranged floral centerpieces and the shimmering satin of the bridesmaids' dresses. The air itself seemed thick with the scent of gardenias and expensive perfume, underscored by the low, elegant hum of a string quartet. It was a picture of flawless storybook perfection, a scene ripped from the pages of a luxury bridal magazine. At the very heart of this dazzling tableau stood Willow Tate, a vision in ivory silk and delicate lace, her face a mask of serene happiness that she had fought for, bled for, and nearly died to achieve. In mere hours she would become Willow Corinthos, binding her life irrevocably to the man who had moved heaven and earth to protect her and their family. Michael Corinthos, handsome and beaming in his morning suit, fussed with his cufflinks nearby, sharing a quiet joke with his brother Morgan. All was as it should be. The ghosts of the past, the kidnappings, the lies, the manipulations, the constant threat of Cyrus Renaud, seemed like nothing more than bad dreams, finally banished by the morning light of this day. Yet, threading her way through the well-wishers and family clusters with the silent, grim determination of a warship cutting through a tranquil sea, was Nina Reeves. Her own complicated history with the Corinthos family was a tapestry of resentment, betrayal, and recent, fragile truces. She had come to the wedding out of a sense of obligation, and perhaps, a sliver of hope for her own fractured relationship with Sonny Corinthos. But as she watched Willow's radiant smile, as she saw the unconditional love and protection radiating from the entire Corinthos clan toward the bride, something corrosive and long buried within Nina began to stir. It wasn't just jealousy. It was a profound tectonic sense of injustice. Here was Willow embraced by the family Nina desperately wanted to be part of, while she, Nina, remained on the outskirts, her truths dismissed, her pain minimized. The sight became an unbearable provocation. Willow, catching sight of Nina's approach, felt a flicker of unease disrupt her bridal glow. Their relationship was, at best, cordial for Michael's sake, a thin veneer of civility over a foundation of mutual distrust. "Nina," Willow said, her voice carefully modulated to pleasant neutrality as she accepted a light air kiss. "Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you could be here to share the day." Nina's smile was a tight, brittle thing that didn't reach her eyes. "You look absolutely perfect, Willow." A picture of blushing happiness. Her gaze swept over the room, taking in Sonny laughing with Jason, Carly overseeing the final details with her signature commanding efficiency. "The whole Corinthos machine rolling out in full force for you. It's quite something to behold." The subtext was as clear as the crystal champagne flutes. Willow's polite mask didn't slip, but a defensive glint entered her eyes. "They're my family," she stated simply, her hand instinctively resting on her abdomen, a subtle reminder of the child she shared with Michael, of the legitimacy of her place here. "Family," Nina repeated, the word tasting like ash. The orchestra began a gentle tuning, a signal that the pre-ceremony milling was drawing to a close. Time was slipping away. The pressure of the moment, the weight of her own isolated bitterness, collapsed in on Nina. The careful calculus of when and how to reveal a secret she had clutched to her chest like a live grenade, evaporated. This was the moment. This was her moment to shatter the perfect porcelain doll of Willow's happiness, just as her own had been shattered so many times. She took a half-step closer, invading Willow's personal space. The ambient noise of the room seemed to fade into a distant roar, leaving the two women in a silent, pressurized bubble. Willow instinctively drew back, but Nina's voice, low, venomous, and terrifyingly clear, cut through the music and chatter. "I have to tell you something," Nina began, her eyes locking onto Willow's with predatory intensity. "I've held on to this for too long, watching you bask in all of this, playing the perfect wounded heroine. But you don't get to have this. Not knowing what you took from me. Not knowing who you really are." Willow's breath hitched. Nina, whatever your issue is, this is not the time or the place. It's the only time. The only place, Nina hissed. And then she delivered them. 6 words. 6 simple, devastating words, assembled in an order that would detonate the foundation of Willow's life. Harmony is not your real mother. The world did not so much stop as it inverted. For Willow, the glittering ballroom, the smiling faces, the gentle music, it all dissolved into a featureless white static void. Those 6 words echoed in the vacuum, each one a hammer blow on the fragile shell of her identity. Harmony is not your real mother. She stood utterly still, a statue in lace and silk, her brain refusing at first to process the syntax. It was nonsense. Cruel, vicious nonsense. Harmony had been her tormentor, her kidnapper, her abuser, the source of a lifetime of pain and confusion. But she was her mother. That twisted, inescapable biological bond was the root of all her suffering, the core of her personal tragedy. To sever it, it was unthinkable. What? The word left Willow's lips as a dry, papery whisper, barely audible. Nina's expression was one of fierce, grim satisfaction. She saw the shockwave hit its target. You heard me. Harmony kidnapped you as a baby. She stole you. Your real mother has been out there, somewhere for over 2 decades, not knowing if you were dead or alive. The static in Willow's mind began to coalesce into sharp, jagged shards of memory. Harmony's erratic behavior, her paranoia, the strange gaps in stories of Willow's childhood, her obsessive need to control and isolate her, the inexplicable, profound lack of resemblance, both physical and emotional, the persistent, nagging feeling of being a stranger in her own life, a square peg forced into a round, toxic hole. She had attributed it all to Harmony's instability, to her cult affiliations, to her sheer malice. But this was a different key, unlocking a door she never knew existed. Who? Willow's voice was stronger now, laced with a terrifying steel. Who is my mother? Nina hesitated, the enormity of her action finally dawning, but it was too late to retreat. The dam was broken. That's not the point right now. The point is that your entire life, your entire identity, is a lie built on a kidnapping. And Michael and his family, they're so quick to judge, to exile, to punish. Where were they? Where was their famous protection when you were being stolen from your real family? But Willow was no longer listening to Nina's grievances. Her mind was racing, tumbling down a terrifying new timeline. If Harmony wasn't her mother, then the genetic curse she feared, the predisposition to illness, to instability, was not necessarily hers. But more urgently, it meant her entire sense of self was a fiction. The woman she had hated, feared, and finally, in a twisted way, pitted was not her blood. The relief that thought brought was instantly swallowed by a tidal wave of new anguish. Who was she? What was her true history? Did she have siblings? A father? A mother who had wanted her, loved her, searched for her? Her eyes, wide and panicked, scanned the room. They landed on Michael, who was now watching the intense exchange with a frown of concern. He took a step toward her. In that moment, his loving, familiar face represented not safety, but complicity. Not in the secret, she knew with every fiber of her being, that Michael was ignorant of this, but in the life built upon the secret. This wedding, this union of the Corinthos family, was the culmination of a story that was fundamentally false. How could she stand before God and their families and make vows based on a person who didn't exist? How could she bring children into a world where their own mother's origin was a stolen mystery? The string quartet struck the first, familiar notes of the processional. It was the cue. Guests began to shuffle, turning their eyes expectantly toward the bride. Carly, beaming with tearful pride, started to move forward to take her place. The machinery of the perfect wedding was now in irreversible motion. Willow looked at Nina, whose defiant posture was now edged with a sliver of panic at what she had unleashed. She looked at Michael, his concern deepening into alarm as he saw the color drain from his bride's face. She looked at the altar, a beautiful archway smothered in white roses, now looking like the gateway to a prison of lies. Willow. Michael was at her side now, his hand gentle on her elbow. Honey, what's going on? What did she say to you? His voice was low, urgent. Willow turned her gaze to him, and he flinched at the utter devastation he saw there. It was not the pre-wedding jitters he had joked about earlier. This was something cataclysmic. "I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Can't what?" "Willow, talk to me." Michael's grip tightened slightly. The music swelled. All eyes were on them. With a force born of sheer, adrenalized panic, Willow pulled her arm from his grasp. "I can't do this." Her cry, loud and raw, sliced through the processional music, bringing it to a screeching, discordant halt. A ripple of confused murmurs spread through the crowd. Carly froze in her tracks, her smile dissolving into shock. Sonny's protective instinct snapped into place, his eyes narrowing as he moved swiftly toward the scene. "Willow, please, whatever it is, we can handle it together," Michael pleaded, reaching for her again, his face a mask of bewildered fear. "No, Michael. You don't understand. Nothing is what I thought it was. I am not who I thought I was." Her voice was rising, edged with hysteria. "This wedding, it's based on a lie. My life is a lie." She stumbled back, clutching the delicate lace of her bodice as if she couldn't breathe. "Harmony, she stole me. She's not my mother." The gasps from the immediate circle were audible. Carly's hand flew to her mouth. Sonny's jaw tightened, his eyes shooting daggers at Nina, who stood her ground, pale but unyielding. "And you?" Willow wheeled on Nina, tears finally spilling over, carving tracks through her carefully applied makeup. "You knew. You knew this earth-shattering truth and you held on to it, and you chose this moment to tell me? Why? To punish me? To destroy me? What did I ever do to you but exist?" Nina found her voice defensive and sharp. "I was trying to protect you. From living a lie. You were trying to hurt me." Willow roared, a lifetime of pain and a moment of shattering betrayal coalescing into pure fury. "You saw my happiness and you couldn't stand it. This wasn't protection, this was an execution." The wedding coordinator hovered uselessly nearby. The photographer lowered his camera, stunned. The beautiful, orderly scene had descended into pure, chaotic drama. Michael tried to step between them, his focus solely on Willow. "Willow, listen to me. None of that matters. I don't care who your mother is or isn't. I love you. The woman you are. The mother of my children. My partner. This changes nothing about us." But it changed everything. Willow looked at him, her heart breaking at the sincere love in his eyes, but the ground was literally crumbling beneath her feet. "It changes everything, Michael," she said, her voice suddenly hollow, drained of all its previous fire. "I don't know who me is. I need to know where I come from before I can promise where I'm going. I can't bind you to a ghost, to a question mark." She turned her tear-streaked face to the assembled guests, to their families, to a horrified Carly and a stone-faced Sonny. She drew a ragged, shuddering breath that echoed in the now silent ballroom. "I am so sorry," she announced, her voice carrying a strange, formal clarity. "The wedding is off. Please everyone, just go home." The silence that followed was absolute, heavier than any music. Then chaos erupted. Questions, cries of dismay, shouts of confusion. But Willow heard none of it. With one last, shattered look at Michael, whose own face had gone ashen with grief and shock, she gathered the heavy skirts of her wedding gown and fled. She didn't run toward the bridal suite but past it, down a service corridor, a flash of white silk disappearing into the stark, utilitarian bowels of the hotel, leaving behind a trail of shattered dreams, a humiliated groom, a furious family, and the echoing destructive power of 6 shocking words. The aftermath, fractures and fallout. In the wake of Willow's flight, the Metro Court ballroom transformed from a sanctuary of celebration into a war room of accusation and grief. The initial stunned silence shattered into a cacophony of voices. Michael Corinthos stood at the epicenter, looking as though he'd been physically gutted. He took an instinctive step to follow Willow, but Sonny's firm hand on his shoulder held him back. "Give her a minute, son," Sonny said, his voice gravelly with controlled anger, though his eyes were fixed on Nina. "She's in shock. Let the women go to her first." But the women, Carly and the bridesmaids, were in no state to offer calm comfort. Carly, her maternal instincts toward Willow and her fury toward Nina at a violent boil, stormed across the space separating them. "What did you do?" she seethed, getting directly in Nina's face. "What poisonous lie did you just spit out to ruin my son's wedding?" Nina, buoyed by a toxic mix of righteousness and panic, stood her ground. It's not a lie, Carly. It's the truth. A truth everyone deserved to know, especially Willow. Or do you only believe in truths that are convenient for you? You had no right. Carly shouted, her finger jabbing the air. This was her day. Michael's day. You selfish miserable. You couldn't stand to see them happy, to see her welcomed into a family you'll never be a part of. So you sabotaged it. You're a destroyer, Nina. It's all you know how to do. Sonny moved then, inserting his large frame between the two women, his focus solely on Nina. The look in his eyes was one of profound disappointment and icy rage. Is it true? He asked, his voice dangerously low. That Harmony kidnapped her? Yes, Nina said, meeting his gaze, her own filling with defensive tears. I have proof, Sonny. I wouldn't say it if I didn't. And you chose today, Sonny stated, each word a chunk of ice. Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Not in private, with care, with support. You chose to drop a bomb in the middle of a church aisle. Why, Nina? For God's sake, why? Nina's defiance wavered under the weight of his scrutiny. Because she needed to know before she made the biggest mistake of her life. You mean before she became a Corinthos? Carly snarled from behind Sonny. That's what this is really about. Michael finally found his voice, a broken sound. Where is she? I need to find her. He shrugged off his father's hand and pushed past them all, oblivious to the staring crowd, his only goal to reach Willow. Meanwhile, in a stark linen-lined service pantry, Willow had collapsed onto a crate, her beautiful gown pooling around her like the shed skin of a life she no longer recognized. Sobs racked her body, deep, guttural sounds of primordial loss. The lace scratched her cheeks. The weight of the dress felt like a leaden shroud. She was adrift in a universe with no coordinates. Every memory, every childhood scar, every moment of self-doubt took on a new horrifying meaning. Had her real mother sung to her? Had she been loved? Was she the product of a violent crime or a desperate act? The questions multiplied like viruses, infecting every corner of her mind. The search for truth begins. Michael found her there, hunched and shattered. He didn't speak, simply knelt in front of her on the hard concrete floor, staining his pristine trousers, and gathered her shaking hands in his. For a long time they stayed like that, the only sound her ragged breathing. I believe you, he finally said, his voice thick. If you say it's true, I believe you. And we will find the answers. Together. But Willow, marrying me isn't a lie. What we have isn't a lie. Willow lifted her ravaged face. How can you say that? You fell in love with Willow Tate, daughter of a fanatical criminal. But who is that? She's a character in a story Harmony wrote. The real woman, you don't know her. I don't know her. I can't ask you to tie your life to a stranger. You're not a stranger to me, he insisted, his own tears falling now. I know your heart. I know your courage, your love for our children, your kindness, your strength. That's not DNA, Willow. That's you. That doesn't change. But she was inconsolable, trapped in an existential crisis. It all has to change, Michael. Until I know where I come from, I can't move forward. I need to stop. I need to investigate the very beginning of me. The practical implications began to dawn. The wedding was publicly, spectacularly cancelled. The life they had painstakingly built, a sanctuary from Harmony's legacy, was suddenly built on quicksand. Wiley, their son, would have questions. The life growing inside her. What lineage did it truly carry? Back in the ballroom, the furious inquest continued. Under intense pressure from Sonny and a now-present Jason Morgan, whose stoic presence was more threatening than any shout, Nina divulged fragments of what she knew. She claimed to have discovered the truth through old connections from Harmony's cult days, corroborated by a faded, hidden police report she had unearthed. A baby girl reported stolen from a hospital in upstate New York, around the time of Willow's birth. Description matching. Harmony, then using a different name, was a person of interest but vanished before she could be questioned. Who are the parents? Jason asked, his tone leaving no room for evasion. I don't have names yet, Nina admitted, deflating somewhat. The report was redacted. I only knew it wasn't Harmony. I was still piecing it together. But you had enough to destroy her today, Carly spat. The fallout was immediate and wide-ranging. Drew Kane, ever the voice of moral reason, was aghast at Nina's timing but acknowledged the truth, however delivered, was Willow's right. He urged Michael to focus on supporting Willow, not on vengeance. Elizabeth Weber, a friend to both Willow and Michael, rushed to the Metro Court, her nurse's instincts kicking in to provide emotional triage.